The second round of the Blancpain GT Sprint Series sees the cars head to Brands Hatch in the United Kingdom. We've got the qualifying race coming up for you in a couple of moments' time. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the commentary box is John Watson, and down in the pits we have Bruce Jones ahead of this 1 hour qualifying race that will set the grid for the main race coming up later on. But right now at Brands Hatch we are having a moment of reflection on the grid for the celebration of VE Day. And that has just come to a conclusion down there on the grid. Alongside me is John Watson, and John, a classic track, and we came here last year for the Blancpain Sprint Series and had some great racing. International GTs around Brands is something special.
Well, first of all, Brands has been blessed with another beautiful day here in Kent, and we've got a wonderful grid of Blancpain sprint cars, and no surprise, the star of the qualifying was Laurens Vanthoor. For all the right reasons in qualifying. He did drop it big time in free practice on Saturday morning, but redeemed himself with an outstanding lap, 1:23.269, virtually half a second ahead of the second place Lamborghini, Nicky Katzberg behind the wheel. Car to look out for on the second row of the grid, the Nissan GTR, Craig Dolby, Sean Walkinshaw. Very, very quick car, and Craig Dolby behind the wheel at the start is up for it. He says, I'm going to have the Lambo and the Audi beside me, probably before we get into paddock. And then I'm going to push Laurens Vanthoor all the way.
So let's hear from Robin Freins, the man who shares the pole position car with Vanthoor. He's with Bruce.
Robin Freins, welcome to sports car racing. You tried to get started at Inaugural, it didn't happen, but today here at Brands Hatch, the number one Audi starting on pole position, your teammate Laurens Vanthoor at the wheel.
Yeah, it's a good start of this weekend, even though FP1, FP2 we didn't drive a lot. We have lots of problems. We had also a bit of a crash. So putting on pole and qualify is a bit of a surprise. See how good the team did his job, so we are looking forward for the race.
Well, enjoy it as your first attempt at Brands Hatch.
Yes, my very first one. I only did 10 laps so far, so I need to do some more.
Best of luck. Thank you, Robin.
Bit of a baptism of fire then for the young Dutchman. It's 15.7 degrees, the air temperature here at Brands. It feels a lot hotter already because the sun is beating down on the circuit. 24.5 degrees, the track temperature. A bit of Union flag bunting as well for the spectators that are about to watch.
Yeah, just interesting hearing Robin Freins describing his 10 laps only at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. A number of drivers here for the first time, not least of all Bernd Schneider. And this track, Brands Hatch, the Grand Prix circuit, I mean, really, what a wonderful racetrack. You've got all the famous names of British Grand Prix racing after all the corners, with the exception of Paddock. There was never a Grand Prix driver called Paddock that I'm aware of, but all the other corners are named after Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Surtees, McLaren, and Barry Sheen, even for motorcycles being recognised.
Yep.
But for many of the drivers, first time here at Brands Hatch, walked the track on Friday, and some of them came in shaking because they realised that this is a proper racetrack, and there are very solid banks close to the side of the racetrack. And they're accustomed to having the wide open spaces where they can make all the mistakes of the day and get away with it. Well, this is proper motor racing on a proper racetrack.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at the grid. On pole position on the left-hand side is Laurens Vanthoor starting that WRT Audi. Alongside him on the front row is Nicky Katzberg. Row 2 is Christopher Mies on the left. Craig Dolby in that Nissan John was talking about on the right-hand side, the car he's sharing with Sean Walkinshaw. Then the two BMW Team Brazil cars. Valdeno Brito out-qualifying Sergio Jimenez. So it's Brito on the right, Jimenez on the Jimenez on the left as we look at it. And then on the next row of the grid, Marcus Fingelhock just behind the other BMW of Joe Osborne, the 888 entry, which is great to have that here this weekend. Then we've got Rob Bell starting that McLaren on the left. He's in front of Bernd Schneider on the right. Then we've got Frank Stippler and Norbert Siedler on the next row of the grid. Marco Asma making his debut this season. He's in that Mercedes on the left-hand side. He's alongside Philippe Salaquada. Then it's Jules Simkowiak on the left, just in front of Stefan Ortelli, with Philip Vlasic and Thomas Fjordbach completing the grid. And I guess the guys to pick out from the back there is the Monegasque pairing of Ortelli and Raquelme, because they are effectively leading the championship. Leading the championship is Max Martin and Dirk Muller after winning in Nogaro, but they were just doing a one-off appearance. So it's essentially Raquelme and Ortelli leading the championship, but they just didn't get it hooked up in qualifying and are going to start 16th on the grid.
Well, partly the reason they didn't get it hooked up was Stefan Ortelli actually made a fundamental mistake. And that was in this corner here. Pedicle Ben got it wrong going into it and ran very wide onto the gravel on the outside, and that sort of blew his best chances of putting in a lap time, which we know Otelli is more than capable of. So therefore, in a way, he let down Raquelme, the young driver, again a young single-seater driver, making his way into GT racing for this first season, and consequently much further down the grid than we would expect.
Let's have a look at the grid then ahead of the race. Pole position is Laurens Vanthoor in the WRT Audi. Nicky Katzberg alongside him. Very surprised with that qualifying performance. First time he's been here in 8 years. Christopher Meade and Craig Dolby are on the second row of the grid. Then it's the two BMW Team Brazil cars looking to consolidate their lead after a superb performance last time out in Nogaro. Seventh on the grid is the 888 BMW, a one-off entry for Brands Hatch from the 888 racing team. Norbert Siegler will start in 12th place in that bright green 333 Rinaldi Ferrari. Marco Asma and Felipe Salaquada are on the next row of the grid, ahead of Simkoviak and the Stefan Ortelli, Stefan Raquelme pairing, which is going to be one to watch, with Vlasic and the Fjordbrack brothers completing the 18-car grid. If you didn't manage to watch the qualifying session yesterday, the other big news, I suppose, is that the 84 Bentley is out of contention. Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch won't be racing here because they crashed their HTP machine. Well, Max Buch crashed his HTP machine coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, had a big hit into the wall, and he was out of the race. Talking to him this morning, he was so disappointed because he thinks the Bentley is a very strong car here, and unfortunately he won't be out in the race, and that's no points for them this weekend, and they are definite championship challengers. Through the final corner then come our pole sitter, Laurens Vanthoor on pole position on the left hand side in the Audi. On the right-hand side of Zwi, look at it, is Nicky Katzberg in the Lamborghini. The lights come on here at Brands Hatch. We get ready to go racing, and when we will, it'll be 1 hour of frantic action around the Grand Prix circuit. We go racing, and it's a very good start from Katzberg on the outside. The rear-facing camera there from the Ferrari further back in the pack, but it looks as though Laurens Vanthoor's going to hold the lead of their race as they drop down through Paddock Hill Bend. Katzberg's hanging on around the outside, but Vanthoor still has the inside line. For Druids, they're going to go side by side all the way around. Vanthoor now consolidates the position up at the front. It looks like the Nissan has made has dropped back a position. Also the 888 BMW of Joe Osborne has managed to get past both of the BMW Team Brazil cars.
And Joe Osborne looking to move down the inside, going into Surtees. Craig Dolby doesn't let him do that. Dolby had hoped to make a better start, try and get ahead of one of the two cars ahead of him and try and challenge Laurens Vanthoor. That hasn't happened so far.
So this is the look back to Marco Asma's Mercedes on board with the 333 green Ferrari that's looking towards the inside there. Not quite close enough, but there is the 888 BMW Z4. Great start then from Joe Osborne. He's up into 5th position. A few little darts back in the pack, but no one able to quite make a manoeuvre just yet. And look at that, Stefan Ortelli's dropped to the back of the field now, so they're really not getting it hooked up so far this weekend. But it's Vanthoor leads. He was on pole by 0.4 of a second. From 2nd back to 9th was separated by the same amount. And there's a look up the inside from Marco Asma, and the Ferrari's gone wide and is in the gravel. Not good news there for Norbert Siegler, and he's going to drop to the back of the field now.
Very lucky not to end up on the wall, because the grass has been slippery all weekend. A lot of rain fell before the weekend got underway, and it's still up at Stirling's Bend, still a very moist part of the racetrack, but the grass bit is anyway.
There's Robin Freitz watching on with Stefan Rattel, and there's a dart to the inside line, the Bentley forcing its way through. Great move from Simkoviak. He goes past Marco Bononomi in the ISR Audi as they now run up towards Druids. But at the end of lap 1, it's Laurens Vanthoor leading the way. Second, Nicky Katzberg, and into the pits comes the Ferrari. I wonder if they had a front right puncture then, because they did just seem to run wide without making a mistake. So I wonder if it was a puncture.
Well, the Mercedes got alongside going into Stirling's Bend, maybe forcing the Ferrari, hit the curb aggressively, could be the reason the tyre got cut down. Of course, now the car back in, well, making its way slowly down the pit lane, but there's the battle for the lead. And Laurens Vanthoor so far not actually pulling away at the kind of pace one would have thought from his qualifying pace. Nicky Katzberg hanging in, Christopher Meese behind Craig Dolby in the Nissan, and then the rest of the field there we see Ferrari back out on track, but all they can hope to do is just make the best of it.
The reason that Ortelli is at the back of the field is because he went off at turn 5, so that is I think that's at Hawthorns that he would have gone wide, and that's the reason that the number 3 car is right at the back of the field. A little look at the 4 car of Frank Stippler there, getting involved in some fights too. But Vanthoor and Katzberg, I think, are going to be going at it for this race. And Vanthoor now, as they come across the line to complete the second lap of racing, is 0.7 of a second clear of the Lamborghini behind. And they're also pulling away from the Brazilian BMWs. Craig Dolby and Joe Osborne are pretty much tied together for that 4th place. It's Dolby in the MRS GT Nissan, then Osborne behind, and then this long pack further back. Albert von Turnen Tax is there on the left-hand side. He'll be taking over from the 2nd place car. Very twitchy on the exit of the corner. Therefore, the 2nd of the McLarens in the hands of Philip Vlasic. And there is the 1st of the McLarens in the hands of Rob Bell, running up in 9th position, the white 650S that's about to flash through Surtees now. There it goes with the orange front on it, as they now head down through Pilgrim's Drop. So it's a very quick first sector again for Nicky Katzberg. He's done the personal best, he's done the best of the race in the first sector on these first 2 proper laps of racing.
Yeah, but over the previous lap it was fractionally to the advantage of the race leader Laurens van Thor, who's got a 3/4 of a second advantage as they are on their 3rd lap. And back at the BMW is running in currently in 6th place.
Valdino Brito, who made his Blancpain debut here last year in the 77 car and ended up having a pretty good result at the end of it as they come into the final corner now. And through clearways, out onto the start-finish straight once more. The 2 Brazilians coming across the line. They missed the first race in Nogaro to complete in the Brazilian Stock Car Championship, which Caca Bueno actually managed to win, so at least it was worth going back out to Brazil and missing Nogaro. He missed a race victory in Nogaro, but he gained a race victory in Brazil, so it sort of worked out okay for him.
I think the one in Nogaro was maybe the more important in the sense of an international event. The one in Brazil was very much the Nationals Touring Car Championship. In the meantime, Laurens van Thor, in spite of being eclipsed in the 1st and 3rd sectors in terms of quickest overall, still is pulling out a couple of tenths a second advantage on the lap over Nicky Katzberg. Christopher Mies a further 2nd behind, and then Craig Dolby again a 2nd behind Christopher Mies in 4th place.
And then just 0.8 of a second behind between Dolby and Osborne in the battle over 4th spot. Great to see the 888 BMW doing so well. They did enter Baku at the end of last season and were generally running in the middle of the grid. But great to see them running further up towards the order now. Here's Norbert Siedler. He's running 18th and last in the field at the moment, 40 seconds down on the rest of the pack, and that's a shame because he and Marco Seefried are a very quick pair of drivers, and it's a shame that they've been pushed that far back.
I mean, Norbert Siedler's lap time now on his first flying lap, having made the pit stop to replace a right front tyre. Still a very good lap time, not as quick as the leading car, but pretty much at the pace of the top, anybody in the top 6. So the Ferrari's got the pace now. It's got that clear air, and of course, but all the time lost, having to come in, change the tyre, get back out, is all for really nothing at all.
54 minutes to go then. Fastest 3rd sector has just been set by Craig Dolby in the Nissan, and as a result, he has closed the gap fractionally to Christopher Mies, who's currently in 3rd position in the number 2 WRT Audi. So the top 4 in the race are the top 4 as they started on the grid. Great to see Nicky Katzberg and that Reiter Engineering Lamborghini looking quick again, because they were nowhere in Nogaro, but they've switched back to smaller front wheels here that they've been running for the past 10 years. In Nogaro, they thought they'd go for bigger front wheels, but it changed the whole sort of dynamic of the car, and as a result, they were absolutely nowhere. So they switched back to smaller wheels, and now it's going well. Here's a look at the replay of the start. Vanther on the inside. Katzberg holds it all the way around the outside. Goodness me, what I think that was Ortelli was super close to the barriers at pit exit, and Katzberg did well to hold it around the outside, but couldn't quite make any progress. And Joe Osborne's passed the Brazilian BMWs by the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, so he just must have got a rocket start.
Well, I think part of that is just the local knowledge of the racetrack, knowing where you can and cannot place your car, particularly in the opening lap when you've got traffic all around. You make your own luck, you make your own space, and that's what Joe Osborne did. He went from the 4th row of the grid, 8th place, all the way up to 5th.
Yeah, and this is the view back from Norbert Siedler in the early stages, coming up into the hairpin at Druids, and they're all getting very busy behind. And I think there was a bit of contact there between the McLaren and one of the ISR Audis, and oh goodness me, that was a bit of a visit from the Fjordback Audi. No, I think that was Bononomi actually, and then this was then him running wide later on, we think, with a front right puncture.
Certainly he had to come in and change that right front, and well, the onboard camera just shows you how much can be dragged back onto a track as this battle again squeezing, coming down into bottom bend.
This is the battle over 15th position. It's Vlasic leading it in the Attempto Racing McLaren. Then right up behind him, he's got Marco Bononomi with Stefan Ortelli behind. So actually Vlasic's just got past Bononomi.
Yep.
And then in behind them in 16th position is Stefan Ortelli, former Le Mans winner, running down in 16th position. He won't be best pleased with how this is going, because they won, of course, the qualifying race in Nogaro. They won the first race of the season, so he and Riquelme will be very keen to try and get past. But here come our race leaders. Vanthoor's lead up to 1.5 seconds now, ahead of Nicky Katzberg in second in the Reiter Lamborghini. Third is the number 2 car still of Christopher Mies for the Belgian Audi Club. Fourth is Craig Dolby, and fifth is Joe Osborne, as they all start to just stretch out a little bit. This is the closest action on the circuit as Ortelli tries to find a way through.
He's really going to struggle, because the pace of the cars ahead of him is so close to his own natural pace. And part of the Brands Hatch circuit is there's not really what I would call a proper straight. Every bit that's straight actually is a long, shallow curve. And then leading into somewhere like Paddock Bend, you've got to be up the inside and parallel to the car you want to get past. Otherwise, if you take a punt and assume you're going to get space, it's very unlikely. Vincent Vos looking not necessarily concerned, but not used to seeing Stefan Ortelli, one of the stars on the WRT Audi team over many seasons, running so far back. But that is the penalty of having a poor qualifying.
Absolutely, and with this being the qualifying race to set up for the main race later on today, it all is a bit of a concertina effect, a cumulative effect as the day progresses. So Vanthoor in the other WRT Audi is still leading the way, so strong performance from them. Marcus Winkelhock's up into 8th place as they drop down Pilgrim's Drop and turn into the right-hander of Hawthorns.
I mean, looking at Stefan Ortelli, he is getting closer to the tail of Bononomi now that the McLaren has broken free from this battle, which was a 3-car battle or a 4-car battle at one point. And Stefan Ortelli clearly has got more pace in his WRT Audi than that of Bononomi. So I think Ortelli will be waiting. There's only a couple of places where he thinks he imagines he's got an opportunity to make that pass. One of them will be up into Paddock. It'll take a big commitment from the Monegasque driver. He's got to be right on the tail as we go forward to the top 4. 4th place, Craig Dolby.
Yep, we go on board with the Nissan then. Down into Graham Hill Bend. Downshift, swings it in, uses all the runoff on the exit. Now heading down towards Surtees.
There's a variety of entries into the corner you can take. It's a great place to overtake. Again, you've got to be alongside the car, and if you get up the inside, then you can really block the person that you're overtaking, slow them down to your pace, and then take control of the corner.
Up into Hawthorn.
Carry a lot more speed. Yeah, you can carry a lot more speed going into Hawthorn, because it is actually quite a heavily cambered corner. From the driver's perspective, you don't quite see that, but if you walk the track, you realise just how much camber there is. Then down into Dingledell, the compression, then up the hill. You can't see the apex. You've got to just make a commitment to it. We heard James Nash talking about actually getting all 4 wheels off the ground going through Dingledell. As an ex-touring car driver, I understand why.
Absolutely. Down into the final corner at Clearways comes the 88 car of Nicky Katzberg. His teammates still not looking particularly relaxed. And Albert will be getting in the car later when the pit stop window opens in, 10 minutes time, 20 minutes time. But they will probably stay out for as long as possible with Nicky Katzberg at the wheel. This is the first time he's raced on the full Grand Prix circuit at Brands. He raced in Formula Ford here some 8 years ago. Meanwhile, this is the battle over 8th position. Marcus Winkelhock in the number 6 Phoenix Racing Audi, under pressure from the Attempto 650S McLaren of Rob Bell behind, and then Bernd Schneider keeping an eye on it all in the GT Russian Mercedes.
Yeah, again, one of the Audis, Nicky Meyer-Mellenhoff and Marcus Winkelhock. Winkelhock did the qualifying, and he never quite seemed to get it hooked up the way, again, with Winkelhock we know what he's capable of doing in an Audi. So Nicky Meyer-Mellenhoff sort of slightly perplexed as to where that pace had gone in qualifying yesterday.
And they were saying, I suppose it was making excuses, but they're saying when you're in a one-car team and there's 2 drivers, compare that to the WRT squad who are running 4 cars with 8 drivers. They're gathering so much more data over the course of a free practice session.
They do. I mean, a lot of that data is relevant only, in fact, to one particular car in that 4-car team. Not every one of the 8 drivers will drive the same as any of the other 7. So while you do get the data, there's only a small amount of that data that will be relevant to the car that you're in. And you take someone like Laurens Vanthoor, he might have a car setup which is quite different to that that we see with Marcus Winkelhock, who's further down the field.
So across the line comes our race leader, Laurens Vanthoor, to complete lap number 9 and start lap number 10. This is the battle over 8th position, Winkelhock, Bell and Schneider. And I think this is Bernd Schneider's first trip to the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, which is astonishing considering the amount of racing he's done over the years.
Yeah, he did race here many years ago in a race series called Inter Series, which is about as different to that to GT cars.
Let's hear from Albert von Taxis. He's going to be taking over from the second place car soon. How's he feeling?
Albert von Taxis, when we get to the driver change, you're taking over the car that's in second position, and just while you're standing here talking, running over the curbs at the edge of the circuit, Nicky Katzberg's really pushing on in second.
Yeah, Nicky's been pushing really hard, as we have seen. He's performed incredibly so far, and there's a lot of pressure on me now. I hope I can bring home this result.
No, pressure's what you drivers thrive on, isn't it, Albert? Come on.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
And how about the circuit? It's no easy circuit, is it here?
Not at all, not at all. First time for me. Very exciting to be here, but very difficult, and takes a bit of a while to get used to these blind corners, very fast corners. Not a lot of room for error, so it's a big challenge.
Well, best of luck. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing listening to Albert von Taxis there describing a racetrack, which, you know, everybody who races in Great Britain, this is their home circuit in many respects. And they take all these corners for granted. And because most racetracks today are big wide open spaces, this is almost an anachronism in terms of contemporary motor racing. But it is a proper racetrack. I wish we had more circuits that have got things that really define the racetrack, and the definition of this racetrack is having barriers close to the side and lots of trees.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have plenty of them in the United Kingdom. This is the battle continuing. Over 15th place, Marco Bononomi in the ISR Audi. ISR switching over from single-seater racing, and a look to the inside at Graham Hill Bend. Nicely done from Stefan Ortelli. Bononomi holds it around the outside. They're going absolutely side by side down towards Surtees, but Ortelli's got the overlap now, and he should be able to get that job done. Bononomi still hanging on around the outside, but there goes through Ortelli into 15th place. A nice move.
Yes, I mean, that was well judged. Opportunity came coming down the hill from Druids, up the inside into what was Graham Hill Bend, bottom bend. Bononomi really maybe slightly unawares that Ortelli was making that lunge. The danger for Bononomi was he ran very, very wide in the exit. You might say that was force majeure. You might say it was just force Ortelli. But you're not allowed to run all four wheels off the grass. Let's look at it again. Tries to recover, but it's too late. Look how far off track Bononomi has gone. Had he regained that position, it's possible he may have been penalised for that, because that's one of the no-nos here at Brands Hatch, not to use more than two wheels off the track, particularly in Graham Hill Bend.
But a great work from, and you can see the sort of reserved look on Philippe Salaquada's face, the teammate of Marco Bononomi, seeing his car drop down to 16th position. Here is our race leader though, Laurens Vanthoor, 4 seconds clear of Nicky Katzberg in second place at the moment, up into Hawthorns. It always looks like it's a downhill into Hawthorns from that camera angle, doesn't it? But it really is very uphill as it comes back. It's just because you've got the drop in the background, it always looks different to how it is.
It's an optical illusion, and I mean the thing about Brands Hatch is this elevation change. There's very much out the back of the racetrack, coming through Dingledale, through Sheen Curve, and then into Stirling's, which is a very straightforward corner, but it's those curbs on the outside that have caught so many drivers out in the past, and it can really set a car off in a major tank slapper. You're lucky if you can catch it.
Now the 888 BMW is starting to be caught by Valdeno Brito in the 77 BMW Team Brazil car, and I wonder if they think they can get up into the top 5, the Brazilians. They started on the third row of the grid. Bruce has managed to find Antonio Herman, the boss of the squad. Let's hear from him now.
Antonio Herman, we had the dream result for BMW Team Brazil at Nogaro, but it's proving a little harder at the moment. Both your cars outside the top 5, only just though. How high can they rise?
Now we are on a good pace. I think that the second part of the race should be better for us. And I'm very confident that both cars will be in the podium at the end of the race.
And how about tyre wear here at Brands Hatch? Are you on top of all of that?
Brands Hatch, it's a very nice circuit for us, for the BMW, and for the Brazil. Brazil have a very good story here in Brands Hatch, and we intend to continue with this lovely story.
Well, let's see. Best of luck, Antonio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, BMW Team Brazil had their first Blancpain podium here last season. I think it was a double podium for Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez. And this is Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu were on board with. And they all basically made their Brands Hatch debut here last season, apart from Jimenez, because he had raced here in Formula Renault when he was Lewis Hamilton's teammate at Manor back in the sort of mid to early 2000s. But down they come now into the final corner at Clearways.
Yeah, we're just saying that Brito was catching up to Joe Osborne, who made that really great start in the opening lap, but now is falling back, or the Brazil BMW moving forward. As BMW is a car really that is pretty ideally suited to the layout, the rise and falls of this Brands Hatch circuit. Fairly high downforce car, top speed here not a critical item as it may be in other circuits, so BMW particularly competitive.
Yep, absolutely. And the gap between Osborne and Brito is 0.8 of a second. That is Joe Osborne in the 888 car we can see up in front, one of the most successful British racing teams of all time, really, in the British Touring Car Championship especially. He made the switch to GTs in 2013 and have since then raced in the British GT Championship, in the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Series as well. So these three BMWs are pretty close to each other. Marcus Winkelhocker's fought off the challenge behind from Rob Bell and is starting to close in on these two as well. Winkelhocker on that last lap did a 26.2, which was 3 or 4 tenths of a second quicker than Osborne and Brito battling over 5th place. So they're all just starting to close in on one another, and the pit stop window opens reasonably soon. There's Lee Mole, the co-driver of Joe Osborne, and they are, don't forget, in the Pro-Am class, comfortably leading the Pro-Am class at the moment. The second car in that class is in 10th place. That's the Bernd Schneider and Alexei Karachev car as they come across the line.
Well, just under 4 minutes to go before the pit lane will open, and I would assume that people like Joe Osborne and others are going to stay out as long as they possibly can, particularly if you've got a good track position. If you're in the midst of a battle, I mean, for example, Otelli, who you'd imagine would be kept out, but it might be opportune to bring Otelli in and let him hand over the car to Stefan Rakelny, maybe find a better track position and therefore maybe make a little bit more progress. Otelli's still stalled out in 15th place.
He has got 4 seconds of clear air though at the moment, Otelli, so that's not too bad in terms of track position, but maybe that will change as the racing progresses. But look at this, Winkelhock really closing in now on the back of Sergio Jimenez. The last lap there was, you know, a good couple of seconds between them. Now as they cross the line it's down to 0.8 of a second, possibly less than that, as they swing through the right-hander of Hawthorns. Winkelhock going very wide.
Well, you can do that on the exit of Hawthorns, assuming the track is fully dry, but also the verge and the curbing is dry. Saturday morning you couldn't get away with that. So that's just a little bit of confidence, but principally track knowledge. And Marcus Winkelhocker's got plenty of that.
And Caca Bueno is watching on with interest. His car in 7th place at the moment. They were out-qualified by their teammate in the 77 car, as they turn into Clearways once more to complete 15 laps of racing here at Brands Hatch in the second weekend of the Blancpain Sprint Series. This is the qualifying race to set the grid for the main race coming up later on.
We haven't seen much of the battle for 3rd place, but that actually is beginning to close up again. Christopher Mies only now less than half a second, well, by about 9 thousandths of a second, under 5 seconds, or half a second. So that's a battle that's beginning to, it's stretched out, closing back up again. And that'll be the final podium place if Christopher Mies can consolidate or Craig Dolby can get past. Of course, they're going to be handing over to the respective teammates, Enzo Eade in the case of Christopher Mies and Sean Walkinshaw in the case of Craig Dolby. So 2 drivers, young drivers, probably in terms of experience fairly equal as opposed to the incumbents in their respective cars.
Yeah, Walkinshaw has done less GT racing than Enzo Eads. Eads done more there, but Walkinshaw has done more in other formulas. So you're right, they're probably sort of even, as Robin Freins gets ready to head back out and take over the car from Laurens Vanthoor, who's feeling a bit unwell over the course of the night, but seems to be feeling pretty decent now to have a 6-second advantage.
You know, when you feel unwell overnight, the best thing you can do is get into a race car, have a really good sweat, get rid of all the toxins that are in your system. I guarantee you, better than any commercial medical potion available.
So Vanthor leads 6.2 seconds clear of Nicky Katzberg. This is still the queue over 5th position. So you've got the white 888 BMW there of Joe Osborne, then the Brazilian BMW of Valdeno Brito, then a little gap back to Jimenez and Winkelhock, and Rob Bell's in that fight as well. So it's all just concertinaing up a little bit. Bernd Schneider is the man who's dropped back in the bright yellow Mercedes SLS. He is out of this battle for the time being. Meanwhile, Stefan Ortelli made any progress. He's taken a second out of Filip Vlasic on that last lap in their battle over 14th place, but he's still some 3 seconds behind as this continuing squabble comes down under the bridge. There is Nick Katzberg leading the way as the pit stop window will open in about a minute's time, and he'll be handing over to Albert von Tern and Taxis, who doesn't quite have the pace of Nicky Katzberg. They're not a pro-am pairing, but Katzberg is very much the works driver, and von Tern and Taxis started off as an amateur a couple of years ago in the GT3 championship.
I would say the aristocratic driver.
Yes, exactly. It's a pro-Aris car as Craig Dolby comes down into clearways.
So this is a battle that's beginning to heat up as the pit stop will be, or the pit lane will be open in 30 seconds, and I just wonder whether they're going to keep Craig Dolby in the car and keep the pressure up on Christopher Mies, or whether VW or the Audi WRT team will bring Mies in and hand over to Enzuid. I suspect they're going to keep both drivers in their positions probably until the latter end of the 10-minute pit stop window.
If it was me, I don't know what I'm doing, of course, but I'd
Stick to the commentary.
Pit Dolby and put Walkinshaw in some clear air. But then the guys have got to figure out where they would come out after their pit stop, because if they were to come back out in a battle further back, it could be more difficult. Then the Nissan really moves a lot, it sort of wallows through the corners, it seems, from some of the onboards. It is a sort of tall, big car compared to some of the lower
It's got
ones.
a higher centre of gravity, for example, than the Audi ahead of it. But it's a very well sorted chassis. It's got a lot of horsepower, a lot of torque, and that's what Craig Dolby was hoping to take advantage of on the start and the run up into Paddock or up into Druids. He wasn't able to do anything. Pit stop window is now open,
but Vanthor stays out, and Dolby now. I did think he was looking slow coming out of one of the corners,
happened,
and
yeah,
all of a sudden he's dropped back and he's right under pressure from Joe Osborne.
He suddenly lost a lot of ground, and there's no obvious reason he's come. I wasn't sure he was going to try and come into the pits. Whether that was a driver error, we saw coming out of Surtees, the car may have a slight flinch, and whether he caught the edge of the racetrack, and that was what caused the car to look unsettled. But suddenly the gap between, it's now up to 4.3 seconds for that battle for third place, where previously it was hovering around the half second. So he's lost the best part of 4 seconds on that last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll keep an eye out on that, whether that's a recurring issue or just a driver mistake. Into the pits there is Rob Bell, and yes, it was 4 seconds on that last lap that Craig Dolby lost. I did think just as he went out of our view, I thought he was going pretty slow.
It was in that Hawthorns Westfield bend part of the racetrack, so he may have run wide or something. We might see he's got an onboard camera. We might be able to get a review of what caused him to lose the best part of 4 seconds.
In comes Stefan Ortelli to hand over to Stefan Riquelme.
And that probably is the smart move for Audi to make. Again, it'll all be about where will Riquelme rejoin the race, and hopefully he will benefit from making that rather early stop and getting out in what will be relatively clear air, because more and more cars will be taking the opportunity in the remaining 8 minutes or just under 8 minutes, as the number 3 Audi makes its way down the pit lane now. Riquelme behind the wheel, and he's got relatively clear air ahead of him, and he's not really being bothered by anybody behind him. So it's another one of the Audis, the number 2 Audi, that's Christopher Mies and Enzuid.
Into the pits comes the first of the 2 BMWs, Valdeno Brito, coming in to hand over to his teammate Attila Abreu. There is Attila waiting, and the BMW Team Brazil squad waiting as well. They won the pit stop challenge a number of times last year, And will they be able to do it again today? A quick pit stop can win you an awful lot of time.
Actually, you know what? To make the sport even more entertaining, maybe there should be points that are added into the championship for the best pit stop of the weekend. Why not?
Well, suggest it. Well, I guess you
done
just
it.
have.
I've told the public, I've told the world.
So out goes Attila Abreu. Now that looked like a pretty quick pit stop actually, as they come out onto the circuit once again, and they should be well clear of the McLaren of Kevin Estre. I'm not sure actually where the McLaren of Kevin Estre is. He's come into the pits already. There's a McLaren coming through the final corner now. Race leader stays out, Laurens Vanthoor. And then he's followed by Kevin Estre. So Estre a long way back from the Brazilian BMW, as would have been expected.
Kevin Estre had a slow lap. I mean, in relative terms, 29.9. I mean, again, almost.
It was his outlap, I suppose. I think it was his outlap, so he would have lost time coming out of the pits there. But I was expecting him to be a little bit closer. So no one coming into the pits this time around. There's Marco Asma in the 71 Russian GT car that he's sharing with Alexei Vasiliev. And here now is Bernd Schneider flashing his lights as he tries to pass Philippe Salaquada, who's come in and served his pit stop and is running in 18th position. But now Robin Freins is lurking, looking ready to get and take over. We've also got a battle here between Norbert Siedler, who's just managed to get past Thomas Fjordbach, and so Norbert Siedler now is up into 13th position.
I mean, that's been a good drive from Siedler, having to make a pit stop end of the first lap, and he's made progress lap quickly all the way through.
Yep, so Siedler up into 13th place. Now, will we see Laurens Vanthoor here, our race leader, coming into the pits this time around? It looks as though Robin Freins is ready to take over as he comes into the final corner now, the Belgian driver. In he comes, the defending Blancpain GT Series champion over the two, and in the Endurance champion. So that means that Nicky Katzberg stays out and moves into the lead of the race. The gap was 7 seconds at the end of that lap, or the previous lap before Vanthoor came in, and now Freins will take over.
Yeah, they've come in literally midway through the pit stop window, whereas Nicky Katzberg is going to stay out longer, the possibility being that he will lap and use so much, such as the clear air that he has. He was not really in dirty air when he was running in second place, but he can use that opportunity, and then when he hands over to Albert Ronton and Taxis, it puts a little bit less pressure on the German co-driver. So we now see what was the lead car go back out. Robin Freins heads up towards Paddock Hill Bend.
Also into the pits is Frank Stippler to hands over to James Nash. They were running down outside of the top 10 after a difficult qualifying session for the number 4 car. They only could manage 11th place, but it is such a strong field that you're going to have top drivers missing out on the top 10.
I mean, the top 10 were covered by, other than Vanthoor's time, which was really beyond anybody's reach, by about half a second, covering 8 or 9 cars. Yeah,
incredibly close. Also in has come Norbert Siedler then for the second time. This time he's going to be handing over to Marco Seefried in the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari. The BMW Brazil squad are also in the pits, I can see. Are the Reiter gang? I don't think so. We're going to have Nicky Katzberg out there for 1, maybe 2 more laps. I think he might be able to do 2 more.
He might be able to do 2, but I would imagine they'll come in this lap, I think, just running it really, really close to the point where the pit stop window then is closed. It's a gamble. If something went wrong, say you picked up a puncture, or you made a little error, or you got caught behind traffic that caused you to make a manoeuvre. So I would imagine, as we see more of the field filtering through, as the bulk of the field really taking the opportunity with 3 minutes to go before the pit stop window closes.
Yeah, so
I would anticipate this lap that Katzberg's on, we will see him in.
Now this is going to be a fascinating pit stop battle, because this is the 0 BMW, the 6 Audi and the 70 Mercedes, and when they came into the pits it was in that order, 0, 6 and 70, the order in which they are in the pit lane now. So if they go out in this order, then no one's gained or lost anything, but if someone can get a jump, then there may be an overtake, but I think it's going to remain the same. The GT Russian car is having a very, very slow pit stop up at the back. It really doesn't look like Alexei Karachev's getting away at all, and that's really lost them a lot of time.
Yeah, Bernd Schneider just put his hand down to the driver's door. I don't know whether he was indicating to tell him to get a move on, or whether there was maybe an issue that he wasn't comfortable with. But there is current lead car. Is it coming in this lap? No, you're right, Jacko.
Yes.
One more lap.
One more lap
and
for
he's got
Nicky Katzberg.
2 minutes, which he can do it in very comfortably indeed. So they're taking the maximum opportunity to keep Nicky Katzberg behind the wheel, and then it'll be the opportunity for Albert von Thurn Taxis.
He looks very excited, doesn't he? Into the pits
He
now.
always
Then
looks excited.
Comes Craig Dolby. Now the question for Dolby is where he comes out, and so is Christopher Mies. So Christopher Mies in as well. So where Dolby comes out with regards to
Sean Walkinshaw,
the Brazilian. When Sean Walkinshaw comes out with regards to the Brazilian BMWs, that's going to be the real battle. Joe Osborne's in as well. The 888 guys have got a lot of work to do, because they're used to British GT Championship racing, where you have a minimum pit stop time rather than going as quickly as possible. So out goes Enzo Eid. He's going to emerge, in theory, in third position. When it all shakes out, away goes Dolby, and with Walkinshaw at the wheel, is he going to be in front of the Brazilian BMWs or just behind? He might be able to get past one here as they come down towards the right-hander. No, not quite. So he comes out behind the 77 and the 0 car. So that's positions lost for the Nissan at during the pit stop window. They came in ahead of the Brazilians, and they've come out behind.
Yeah, that was disappointing, because the number 3 Audi also came in just ahead of Craig Dolby. They had a really quick turnaround, got Enzo Eid out, and I don't know what caused the driver change and wheel change on the Nissan, but a position lost for the Nissan, down to 5th place effectively once the whole pit stop window washes out.
So I think it might be 2 positions lost, because both of the Brazilian BMWs have got past. So in now comes Nick Katzberg to hand over to Albert von Thurn and Taxis. I don't think it'll be too much of a battle for the lead, because it was a 7-second advantage when Lawrence Van Thorp pitted to hand over to Robin Freitz. Freitz is getting held up a little bit by the McLaren in front, and that's going to be a bit of a tight exit there. And they just about get away with it. There goes Freitz through to retake the lead of the race, and in second place now should be Albert von Thurn and Taxis as he makes his way out of the pit lane. It's going to be pretty close though, because Enzo Eid is on his way down. Look to the right hand side there, that is Enzo Eid, the car in third position. So I mean, that's closed in.
Well, it would take an inspired lap from Enzo Eid to both catch and then overtake Albert von Thurn and Taxis. I mean, you can see just the gap almost as halved for the time it took to get through Paddock Hill Bend for von Thurn and Taxis on his out lap, where Enzo Eid has already done a flying lap. So he is going to be a little bit more comfortable. The tyre temperature will be up at operating temperature, whereas for von Thurn and Taxis, it's fresh tyres, no tyre warmers. It's a matter of getting a feel for the car, but doing it with a slight amount of pressure behind.
So there's our race leader, Robin Freitz. He's now got a 10.8 second advantage over the second place. And there's Forceful attacking from Lee Mole, and he and Alexei Vasiliev end up in the gravel trap. A real shame for the pair of them. Looks as though Vasiliev is out of the race, and it was Lee Mole on the attack into Druids, and that's Vasiliev's race over, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we have to look at it. We just caught the end of it where the BMW and the Mercedes came into contact. Let's have a view looking back. So it's the Mercedes who's ahead. BMW comes up the inside, and that was a bit.
He was
sort
quite
of
far
almost
alongside.
self-induced, I would say. It was a little bit aggressive and trying to close the door. The BMW was there legitimately. They hadn't even reached the corner, and he was trying to squeeze the BMW, and the contact inevitably occurred. And I would imagine there'll not be any action taken against Lee Mole for that particular incident.
So 23 minutes to go in the race here at Brands Hatch. Robin Freitz leading the way, 12 seconds clear of the battle for second place between Albert von Thurn and Taxis and Enzo Eid. And this is a battle further back. This is Stefan Rakelmi trying to make his way past Lee Mole now to try and gain 11th position. I think Lee Mole's in as they come into the final corner, and they're up with the 83 Bentley of Olivier Lombard.
Keep an eye on Rakelmi. He's trying to line up the Audi, thinking about a look. He's not going to do it into Paddock Hill Bend. His best chance again is going to be into Druids, where we saw one lap ago the Mercedes and the BMW get into a battle for track position. The BMW came off the better of the two. Stefan Rakelny not capable of doing anything this time. Probably might be able to lap overall quicker than Lee Mole in the BMW. Again, not into Graham Hill Bend. The next opportunity comes into Surtees. Pretty easily defended to prevent an attack going down the inside. He's looking down the inside. He brakes late, gets the position, but can he maintain it? He's the BMW just managed to keep the momentum around the outside of Surtees, but now overall straight line pace, the Audi is going to be marginally ahead. It's going to be interesting who comes out of, well, Hawthorne is going to be clearly Stefan Rakelny, but he runs wide. He didn't really get an apex, but no chance for Lee Mole to come back. Yeah,
good work there from Rakelny, the 888 BMW squad watching on in the pits, but of course it's not that fair a fight, because the BMW is running in the Pro-Am class, Lee Mole the Am, whereas Stefan Rakelny has won GP2 races at Monaco, so that's the sort of difference of experience that we're talking. And Rakelny now up into 12th position, so Freund still leading the way. Albert von Turnen Taxis there in the 88. Reiter Lamborghini is second, but not by much, because he's got Enzo Eid closing in on him. And we can hear now from Nicky Katzberg. Bruce Jones has found him. Is he going to be able to hold off the attack from Enzo Eid?
Nick Katzberg, a brilliant first stint from you, but the big question is, can Albert hold off the charging Enzo Eid behind him? Will we have Lamborghini finish second?
Yeah, I think Albert can. He's doing a great job so far this weekend, and I'm sure he will stay in front of Eden.
Well, we'll see. Thanks. Good job.
Yeah, the trouble is that Von Turnen Taxis' first flying lap was basically 2 seconds slower than the lead Audi, but more importantly, 1 and a bit seconds slower than the charging Enzo Eid. So he is going to be under pressure. Whether Enzo Eid can maintain that pace, having had the advantage of doing the slightly earlier pit stop and getting up to speed that 1 or 2 laps beforehand. So let's see. Von Turnen Taxis still a 1:27.2 against a 1:26.9, so 0.3 of a second advantage to Enzo Eid. It's beginning to settle down. Maybe Nicky Katzberg's optimism is going to be justified.
I think they'd have been disappointed if Bruce had asked that question and he'd have said no chance. But the quickest, now Rakelny's got past Lee Mole. He's just set the fastest first sector of anyone in the race so far. So Rakelny certainly has the pace out there. No further action between the incident of Lee Mole and the 71 car of Alexei Vasilyev.
No, I mean, when you saw it again in review, we got the head-on shot, and the BMW was legitimately on the inside and was being pinched way too early before they even got to the corner, and it was a self-induced penalty for the Mercedes. Regrettably seeing another car out, but that's the penalty you have to accept.
Into the right-hander, and dropping down through Dingle Dell up towards Sheen. The battle over second position is the one we're watching. Albert von Turnen Taxis is in second place. Enzo Eid is in third position in that number 2 black and yellow WRT Audi. 19 minutes remaining here at Brands Hatch. This is just to set the grid for the main race that's coming up later on. So they swing into the right-hander and head out onto the straight again. Vincent Voss, the man who runs that WRT operation, hoping that he can see his cars get a 1-2, because Freitz and Vanthor leading the way at the moment up at the front, as they did here, as they have done here before, but they were so good at winning on the qualifying races last year, but only managed to win 1 main race, and that's why they never ended up challenging for the title. That was Vanthor and Ramos back then. Yeah. Now it's Vanthor and Freitz. It could be a different story, but this is close.
Yeah, this is close, and you saw Vincent Voss's face. He wants to have his 2 cars in the front row of the grid for no other reason. You lock out track position. Overtaking at Brands is not the easiest of racetracks. We've seen some outstanding overtaking manoeuvres, but that takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of where am I on the racetrack and where can I use my car's strengths. But other racetracks make it easier than they do at Brands, looking to see the long way around the outside going into Stirling's and the cut back up the inside.
Yeah, this is the battle over 7th position. Kevin Estra in that white McLaren on the right hand side, trying to get past Nicky Meyer-Melnoff. He's up alongside on the run down the straight towards Hawthorne. Meyer-Melnoff will hold it on the inside line. Estra will go around the outside at Hawthorne. Great move from the Frenchman.
Yeah, particularly doing it on Nicky Meyer-Melnoff, because you're never really sure. I mean, as great a driver as Nicky Meyer-Melnoff is, occasionally he has his hissy fits, and that in Hawthorne's is not a place you'd like one of those hissy fits to occur.
Absolutely not. 17. I hope he doesn't watch these races back.
Otherwise, you're going to be
17 15 and a half minutes to go, and look at that, an 18-second lead now. Robin Freins is flying out there, lapping well, about a second, 1.3 seconds a lap quicker than the battle for second place, which is Von Taxis and Enzo Eid. And look at that, now Kevin Estra's got through into 7th. He's starting to romp clear, but he is 8 seconds down the road from Walkinshaw. Here's a look at the replay of where it all...
Well, I mean...
Nicky did this last year.
Yeah,
he ran wide
Nicky,
and lost
that's what I'm
position.
saying about Nicky. You're never really sure when he comes to a corner what you're going to get. Kevin Estra saw that. He put himself into a position. Meyer Melnhoff went to defend up the inside, gave Astra the opportunity to come around the long way, and there we see that's 1 lap later. The gap, just over a second, and Olivier Lombard pushing hard to try and make up some ground, currently in 11th place, and the Mercedes very much a challenge. And we've got Alexei Karachev behind the wheel.
Yep. They swing into the left-hander, and look how quickly the Bentley has been catching the Mercedes as we go back to see Sean Walkinshaw. Starting to close in. Is he on the Brazilian BMWs in front? He's only 0.6 of a second behind Caca Bueno, and on that last lap was 0.3 of a second quicker. We go on board.
I mean, the Nissan's got a load of squirt out of all these sort of second, third gear corners, a lot of torque to really get the car momentum up to speed. So he's got to look and see whether there's opportunities to at least get to split the two BMW Sports Trophy Team Brazil cars.
It's great to see the Nissan running well, because we did have a Nissan in the Sprint Series a couple of years ago, run by the RJN team, part of the GT Academy squad, and they said that the sprint tracks didn't really suit them. On the big, Monzas and Silverstones, they were absolutely on it, but the tight, twisty circuits like Nogaro, they said they just couldn't get the power down. But this Nissan team, run by MRS Racing, they were very quick at Nogaro, very quick here too.
Yeah, I mean, it is a quick car. I mean, there's obviously development and engineering in general within the rules and regulations enables cars to improve. And
Jimenez is enjoying it.
I was just going to say, Jimenez is having a lovely afternoon in the sun. Well, not quite afternoon yet. In another 7 minutes.
Okay, well, we look forward to that.
A little having a sniff down the inside, just showing the nose of the Nissan, showing the intent. And he's got the pace to get ahead of the first of the BMW. Craig Dolby, he's happy with his morning's work.
A very busy morning for Craig Dolby, because I think he's racing in the GT Cup as well. He's already had a qualifying session this morning, a race here, and then he's got 2 more races to do this afternoon.
He's got a massive mortgage, even in spite of all the results on Thursday, massive mortgage to pay off.
Down to the clearways they come, and it's lights ablaze for Sean Walkinshaw, who's a team owner as well, runs Sean Walkinshaw Racing, which competes in other championships, including the BRDC Formula 4 Championship, as they come down into Paddock Hill Bend once again. And after the race, we'll definitely have to go and see what happened to them when they lost that 4 seconds in the first stint, because if that hadn't happened, I mean, I know it's all ifs and buts, but they'd be in the battle for second right now with the sort of pace they're showing. And in fact, these 3 are all closing in on second position at a rate of about, well, almost a second a lap.
And again, just going back to this battle for second place, Von Taxis running now at a comparable pace, whether he's delaying Enzo Eid or not, but the battle is for that second place. And Enzo Eid, who's caught up relatively quickly, can't translate that into a pass and take second place away from Von Taxis.
On board we go into Hawthorns again. And he's got past, he's got past the BMW Team Brazil car, and he is up into 5th position. Good move, I presume, from Walkinshaw. I missed it.
Yeah, we didn't see it on camera. The Bentley has stopped. Is that coming out of Graham Hill Bend? It is. Has spun coming out of Graham Hill Bend, getting back underway. Olivier Lombard, who was really hustling the Bentley Continental along.
And now Walkinshaw's got to defend.
Yes.
He's got through into 5th position, but he's got Caca Bueno very frustrated now that he lost that place behind him. And Walkinshaw will try and sprint clear and to try and close in on Attila Abreu, who's running in 4th position at the moment. Across the line they come, 13 minutes to go, and they are now just 2.5 seconds behind the battle for second place as well. So it's all starting to close in here at Brands Hatch. 13 minutes to go. This is the qualifying race ahead of the main race that's coming up later on this afternoon.
I think the thing that Sean Walkinshaw did was when he caught the BMW, he got a pass. He didn't sort of get caught or trapped behind, and therefore the momentum that had carried him up to the tail of the first of the 2 cars was able to carry it forward.
We can now hear from Craig Dolby, the man who ran the opening stint, and his teammate is really making progress.
Craig Dolby, I don't want to drag you away from the screen. Sean Walkinshaw doing a great job, just gained another position.
Yeah, he's flying at the minute, so he's doing us proud, really. Just hope he doesn't have the same gearbox issue as I had. It went into neutral, so fingers crossed we can get it home.
Did you hear what he said?
Well, let's hope that Sean doesn't have that. Best of luck, good run there.
Thank you, cheers, thank you.
Well, there's our question answered.
Yeah, indeed. We thought it might have been a driver mistake, but it was simply a box full of neutrals, and of course you've got to then quickly react, and lots of stuff on board the car to reset and then get the gearbox functioning fully. I mean, it's electronics principally, and servos, and ultimately a mechanical gear change.
So, here down, coming towards Paddock Hill Bend, is the battle for fourth place. Attila Abreu now only has a 0.4 of a second advantage. Walkinshaw has rocketed up to the back of that BMW, and look, the battle for second is just up in front. Oh, this is going to be why Olivier Lombard spun.
This was an assist. I bet you it was an assist.
A bit of a bonjour from Raquelme. Oh.
Yeah, that may get the attention of this, because again, that was no way was the pass possible, and it just banged into the right rear corner, left rear corner of the Bentley, and Olivier Lombard was in no position to do much about it. So Raquelme may well have blotted what was actually a very impressive run, but that's slightly spoiling it.
Yep, he'd seen Ortelli do it and thought, I'll have a go at that as well. You can see he took a second out of Attila Abreu on that last lap, Walkinshaw, as they come up towards Hawthorns. The big MRS GT Nissan tucked right in behind.
Just getting a message, pit stop for car number 2. That's the Enzo Eid car, currently running in third place. It's under investigation. I remember watching the car. It came in, it left the pits. It was a very short pit stop, much quicker than any of the others I think I've seen so far. So that's under investigation. But back to this battle, which is in 4th and 5th place. So Sean Walkinshaw with just over 10 minutes remaining.
So there's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, all coming under the bridge down towards Clearways, all pretty much in sort of reverse speed order with 10 minutes to go.
So our attention right now in this battle for 4th place, Craig Dolby.
Robin Freintz up at the front, meanwhile, has a 23-second lead over this 2nd place battle.
He's just fulfilling the potential that WRT knew that he had. Did blot his copybook in Nogaro, but that's all in the past. As Frank Stippler and Stefano Telli are watching their respective teammates, and that's the battle 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yep, great to have such close action here on the Brands Grand Prix circuit. Through Surtees they come, and this is where the Nissan is strong compared to the... Oh, did he get sideways coming out of there?
He spun the wheels up coming off the curb, so the car lost that little bit of momentum. But again, you can see once it gets underway, there's an enormous amount of grunt from that V6 twin-turbo engine.
And now here is the attack for 10th position. Stefan Raquelme trying to pick up 10th spot. No points for 10th position. It's only the top 8 that will score in this qualifying race, but you want to get as high up the grid as possible, considering they started in 16th on the grid. To get up to 10th would put them in reasonable contention for the main race later on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of what Stefan Raquelme is doing, is to maximise the best possible finish, to get the best possible start for the main race later, and grid position at Brands Hatch is a problem.
Drive-through penalty for the 2nd place car. Albert von Turnen Taxis has been given a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Whether that was pit in or pit out, uncertain, but it's a drive-through penalty for the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, and that'll be a real frustration for them because they're running in what is a reasonably comfortable 2nd position, 2 seconds clear of Enzo Eid.
Yeah, I mean, the 2nd place battle had consolidated, and all of a sudden that maverick pit step penalty, or the drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane, has just overturned all the good work done by Nicky Katzberg and by von Turnen Taxis. But the speed limits are there for a purpose, and if you don't adhere to them, you will be penalised. This battle currently, again, which is going to be now the battle for 3rd place, a podium position now, either to the BMW or to the Nissan.
Absolutely, and ultimately they haven't got too far up the road, but before they get to Enzo Eid, possibly in the battle over 2nd place. But a shake of the head from Hans Reiter, and well, It'll be a brave man to go and ask him about it. Maybe Bruce is up to the task, we'll find out. But 7.5 minutes to go, and that second place 88 car, Albert von Turnentaxis, is going to have to serve a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and very, very wide there for Attila Abreu in the third place BMW.
Yeah, he ran it very wide in the exit of Sheen Curve. You can catch the grass verge, and that is just, he did that, but not enough to cause him any particular problems. But that's the kind of pressure he's having to react to.
So into the pits comes the 88 Lamborghini of Albert von Turnentaxis to serve his drive-through penalty, and he drives through at a very, very slow speed, like he should have done the first time.
Well, we don't know whether it was him or Nicky
No,
Katzberg,
I
as you pointed out. We assumed it was Albert von Turnentaxis, but we don't know. The car has been penalised. It's the driver that suffers the penalty.
Yeah, it could have just been too late getting down to the speed limit. That tends to be where the speeding occurs, rather than going too quickly on the way out of the pits. But that has dropped him down to, I think, 8th position now. So still not a terrible position to be in, but this is now the second place car, the number 2 WRT Audi of Enzo Eid, but he's got Attila Abreu and the Nissan, and the Nissan is so strong down Pilgrim's Drop. That's where the advantage is in that Nissan, is its straight line speed. We go on board with Sean Walkinshaw in the MRS GT Nissan, running in 4th place now, looking to get onto the podium for the first time in their Blancpain career. Up through the right-hander of Sheen, now into the left-hander, the cambered downhill left-hander at Sterling's, and out once again towards the start, finish straight, and Kevin Estra's coming. Is that Kevin Estra's coming to join the party?
I mean, he's driving the wheels off the McLaren. I mean, literally running every bit of the racetrack and the curb. I mean, what an exciting driver Kevin Estra is in a GT car. Well, it's a Porsche last weekend in Belgium here at Brands Hatch in a McLaren, one of the factory McLaren drivers, and just pushing every second he's behind the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's managed to get up into 6th place. That 55 car started in 9th, but in the hands of Rob Bell, got a bit bogged down in the traffic in the early stages, in the early battles. But now it is very much a 4-way car, a 5-way train for the second place spot. This is Robin Freitz just being very conservative when he's coming up to lap Lee Mole. This is the man leading the race in the number 1 WRT Audi with a 27-second advantage over that second place squabble, and you can understand why he was just being a little cautious when lapping some of the back markers. Down Pilgrim's Drop, look how quick that Nissan is coming into Hawthorns.
I mean, it's picking up speed all the way down into Hawthorns Bend. So he needs to keep that close contact, but of course he's having to be dictated to by Abreu in the BMW. It's the pace of the BMW that's determining the pace of the Nissan, and that's really preventing Walkinshaw from getting that attack. He was able to pass the first of the 2 BMWs because he had momentum. He's not got the same momentum.
Yeah, I think he's going to need a good run out of Surtees, maybe a mistake into Surtees from Attila Abreu. Kevin Estra's dancing around.
Absolutely. Kevin Estra's the man that could really be, with 4.5 minutes of this race remaining, the one that could pick up certainly one position, assuming he can get again into, just coming up into Paddock Hill Bend, as you see the Nissan and BMW, the gap sort of being seesawing between 1/2 and 3/4 of a second.
Now
it's closer, consistently closer on that last lap at the start of this lap than we've seen at any point. BMW quicker, maybe better traction out of Druid, but the Nissan has certainly got the squirt on the straight line, runs a little bit wide coming out of Graham Hill Bend.
This could be a good opportunity for Walkinshaw, because he was just 0.3 of a second behind at the line. If he can get a good drive coming out of the left-hander at Surtees, the move could be on for 3rd place. He's tucked right up behind the BMW as they come through Pilgrim's Drop now. He goes a little bit more narrow into the corner. Is he going to be close enough to look to the inside of Hawthorns? A little covered to the inside, not quite close enough. And this battle is going to run and run in the remaining 3.5 minutes. John has just left to make the long trek from the commentary box down to the Parc Fermé to interview certainly Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor, but who else is going to be on the podium, because we've got this fantastic 5-car fight, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all flashing through. 2 BMWs, a Nissan and a McLaren 650S with 3 minutes to go through Clark Curve. Enzo Eid in that second spot has managed to hold on for the time being reasonably comfortably. Again, Walkinshaw is just 3/10 behind, and Craig Dolby there is desperate to pick up a podium. Former Super League Formula race winner Craig Dolby, as they come up into the hairpin at Druids. Look how close he is. Now dropping down the hill into the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. Again, he seems to go in earlier to the apexes than the car in front. Kevin Estre, meanwhile, in the McLaren is looking very strong. Now watch these two cars coming through here, absolutely nose to tail. 77 is the Brazilian Attila Abreu. Right behind him in the big white Nissan is Walkinshaw. Is he going to be close enough? Coming up towards Hawthorne, looks to the outside line. Outside at Hawthorne's a brave one, looks for it, can't quite get it done. Will try and get the cut back, but that could compromise him because Caca Bueno is not too far behind in the zero BMW. But that's the sort of attack that Walkinshaw has got to try and pull, but he couldn't get it done that time around. And it's the inside line really into such a quick right-hander that you need Craig Dolby can't bear it, can he? Incredible. He's right backing out of the garage as they come down towards the final corner at Clearways once more. 1.5 minutes left on the clock. Robin Freitz has been through to start his 41st lap of the race, so I think Freitz has just started his penultimate lap of the race, I think. So we are now on the penultimate lap of the race. 1.5 minutes to go here at Brands Hatch. A fantastic five-way fight for second position. Looks as though Enzo Eid might just about have it covered for that second place spot, but the battle for the final podium position is kicking off. So is the battle for 5th place. Kevin Estre desperate to find a way through. He's in the Attempto Racing white McLaren 650S. On board with Walkinshaw again. Further back this time across the line. He was 0.3 of a second further back from Attila Abreu as the previous tour. He's got a reasonably good run through Surtees. And just look at the Nissan close in. Abreu knows it, and he has to cover the inside line. Here comes the attack again from Walkinshaw, but he's not going to be close enough, and it's not possible to go all the way around the outside really at Hawthorne. Walkinshaw and Dolby don't actually have that much experience here at Brands Hatch. Dolby's raced here 3 times, Walkinshaw twice, as the race leader has now just started his final lap. So these guys are still on their penultimate lap. One more to go after this. Down into Clearways. That's Enzo Eid in second place. Third is Attila Abreu. Fourth is Sean Walkinshaw. And fifth is Caca Bueno. And sixth is Kevin Estre. As they come across the line now, the clock counts down to 0. And they start the final tour of this Brands Hatch circuit in what has been a very entertaining qualifying race. The main race still to come later on today. And look how close Kevin Estre is to the back of Caca Bueno on the run up the hill towards Druids. Is he going to be close enough to make a manoeuvre? Not quite yet. And is that the last opportunity for Estre potentially? Runs a little bit wide, and also Walkinshaw is not really as close, and he's run quite wide coming out of Graham Hill Bend. It doesn't look as though Walkinshaw is going to be quite close enough in that MRS GT Nissan. But here is our race leader, Robin Freitz, coming down through Stirling's, the left-hander now. A man with an incredible single-seater record, really burst onto the scene a few years ago. Consecutive championships in the Formula Renault Series, but now he and Laurens Vanthoor are going to take victory in the qualifying race at Brands Hatch, their first win of the season in Blancpain Sprint. Who's going to be second across the line though? That's the big question. It should be Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies coming out down towards Clearways for the final time. Enzo's going to have to go defensive surely, because he's got the BMW right behind him, not quite close enough through the right-hander at Clearways. Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies are going to make it a 1-2 for Team WRT. They'll have a front row lockout for the main race just in front of Attila Abreu. Then Craig Walkinshaw finishing in 4th position. 5th place for Caca Bueno. Kevin Estre couldn't quite get it done for 6th. There's Nicky Meyer-Melnoff across the line for Phoenix Audi in 7th position. But 3rd down to 6th were covered by 1.3 seconds. There's Albert von Turn and Taxis. They could have been in 2nd place, but for a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But delight for Team WRT. A 1-2. Their first 1-2 of the season so far. And Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freitz taking the victory in the qualifying race. That'll give them pole for the main race later on today. Still a few battles to come across the line. Marco Seifried did a great job to get up into 10th position there in the 333 Ferrari after they had to make 2 pit stops for a puncture in the opening lap suffered by Norbert Siedler. But hopefully the pretty big crowd that's come here at Brands Hatch have enjoyed it. There is Freitz. He and Laurens Vanthoor taking a commanding victory, 26.5 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. Hugely impressive stuff. Freitz climbs out of the car. He's used to... Oh, and that is Alexei Karachev. Now, has he rotated there? Or... I'm not quite sure what's happened there to Karachev. But there is Robin Freitz. Delighted with his first victory in Blancpain, his first victory in GTs. They couldn't compete in the opening race in Nogaro because Freitz crashed into the pit wall, and that meant that the car was a write-off for the weekend. So that was his first GT race, and he's won it. And the 70 car of Karachev just came to a stop. He didn't spin or crash, he's just pulled up to a stop. But there is Robin Freitz, our race winner. Superb performance from the Dutch racer, and he's now talking to Bruce Jones.
Robin Freitz, congratulations. You said before the start of the race you'd only done 10 laps at Brands Hatch. Looks like you've known it all your life.
Well, I have to learn a lot from this boy here. He's quick, but car's good. Team did a good job during the entire weekend, and finally we had a deserved win.
Laurens Vanthoor, you put the car on pole, a dominating run. Got a good start, just again dominated. What do you have to do, or what does anybody else have to do to get ahead of you guys?
No idea. I think we're just a good team. We work well. So we do our work the best we can, and that's what we get on track.
So Robin, pole position for the start of the main race. Any thoughts about thinking forward a couple of hours?
No, I just see what happens. I don't think to think forward, you know. Start is everything different. Always, not always the same. So just see what happens in the first corner is the most important thing.
Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So great to hear from our race winners. Speaking, of course, of John Watson, not Bruce Jones. Totally forgot he'd been up with me for most of the race. But yeah, they chat to Watty down there, and a great performance from them. Second place for Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies. Strong performance for the WRT team, a 1-2 for them. Very impressive stuff. And hopefully we'll be hearing from the second place guys in a few moments' time. Well, here we go. Christopher Mies and Enzo Eid are down. Speaking to John Watson. It is John Watson this time.
Christopher Mies, that's a good morning's work, isn't it?
Yeah, so far so good. Qualifying race we finished second. It's a good start for the championship race, but the main points are in the race later on. So yeah, we'll push harder there. Car wasn't as good as in qualifying, but I'm sure the boys will find it and we'll sort it out.
Enzo, you were charging all the way under pressure, but at the end the Lamborghini was penalised, so it made it a lot easier, but a great drive nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you. It's true. The cars behind me catched up quite quick, but I was also with the Lamborghini in the fight, and in the end, okay, I managed to stay in front. And like Christopher said, nothing happened yet. It's only the qualifying race. It will be this afternoon the most important.
But isn't it nice to be starting at the front, see no one else other than your own teammate alongside?
Yeah. It's of course a great experience and a great feeling if you start in front with nobody else in front of you. So I will take the start. I will let you know how it feels after the main race.
Well, send us a letter. We'll catch up later on. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Enzo Eid there chatting to John, and he doesn't seem totally enthused about starting on the front row of the grid. Bruce Jones has joined me in the commentary box now, and a great result for WRT.
A really good result. I mean, they had the trip up at Nogaro where we lost the number one car before we went out to play, and they've totally delivered. But I thought Enzo Eid's face was very funny there. I think he's realised the enormity of where he's starting for the feature race after we've all had a slap-up lunch. And really interesting race, but as we've seen at Brands Hatch, you can get close, but it's so hard to take an overtaking manoeuvre.
Yeah, we can now hear from our third place men, Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu.
Attila, it's nice to see you Brazilian boys smiling.
Yes, I mean, my first race as a season, so I'm really happy. First time that me and Valdeno, we drive together. So we had some problems in the first practice yesterday, but we were able to improve. The mechanics did a really good job. They changed the gears and everything, so everything works. I really don't know the pace for this car. I need to understand, it's just my first time. But anyway, finished third. It's really good. Now I think we can improve, work a little bit more, and maybe dream with another podium for the second race. Let's work.
Hey, Valdeno, second row of the grid, but you got that Nissan alongside of you, and it was splitting your two team cars. It's got a lot of pace.
Yes, Nissan is very fast, the straight. But first I want to say that I'm very happy about this pod because last year I was penalized, some problem I had with pit stop. I was very sad about that. I was in second place, but today it was another day, third position, first race in the sprint series with Attila Abreu, a very fast guy, and he did a very good battle about Nissan. So I'm very happy. Thanks the team. They did a very good pit stop again. I hope they win the pit stop too.
And I think it's his birthday. Is it your birthday today?
Yes, it is my birthday. Okay. Happy birthday. First time that I drive the day of my birthday. I'm 28 years now, but I'm really happy. Thank you, Tim.
I thought you were only 21 and you'd never been kissed.
No, 21 was a long time ago. Now 28, get a little bit older, the beard starts to get a little bit white, but you still have a lot of time to drive and to race.
Well, happy birthday, congratulations.
Yeah, Watty's not the person to complain to about feeling old. There's a great performance from Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu. They really had to defend towards the end of the race. I hope Watty didn't hear that. Yeah, they really had to defend towards the end of the race there.
Didn't they just? But I think the scariest moment of all must have been Attila thinking that John was going to give him a kiss there down in Parc Fermé. But again, through the course, as we had all those cars in that battle for second place, just looking at their different areas of performance advantage around the circuit, and there's one place you just don't want to be trying to overtake around the outside, and that's Hawthorne's. Sean Walkinshaw gave it a couple of goes, and I actually thought he might lose the position as he had to come off the power just that little bit, but he didn't.
Here's a look at the results after 42 laps and 1 hour of racing at Brands Hatch. A 26.5 second winning margin for Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor. Incredible performance from them ahead of their WRT teammates Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies. But that fantastic battle from second down to sixth place is going to resume instantly when the qualifying race gets when the main race gets underway, because it'll be the drivers who finished that race starting the main race. So Walkinshaw in fourth, Kevin Estre doing a good job to climb up into sixth position. Eighth place for Albert von Turnentaxis and Nicky Katzberg, having run second in the early stages. 13th position for the 83 Bentley that got punted around a couple of times. Alexei Karachev coming to a stop on the final lap in the Team Russia Mercedes. Lee Mole and Joe Osborne slipped back after a strong start, and Alexei Vasiliev and Marco Asma were forced out of the race after contact with the 888 BMW.
And just looking down that list, Jack, I think you have to pick out 10th place there, because 10th place went to the Ferrari that came in for a extra pit stop, so good drive for the Ferrari team.
Yes, absolutely. Marco Seefried recovered that very nicely. So the podium presentations are going to be getting underway in a couple of moments' time. And out onto the podium come the race winners, Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor, onto the top step. For the first time this year, Vanthoor was on the top step in the qualifying race many times last season, but couldn't get it done when it mattered in the main race, and he'll be hoping that will change for this year, and he's got his first chance to do it later on today. A 1-2 for WRT, Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies there in second, and then Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito in third place. A shake of the hands with everyone as I think that's Pierre Dudonné comes out onto the podium. And now it's time for the Belgian national anthem. Top step of the podium for Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freins, his first GT race and his first GT victory. Not a bad record.
1 from 1. Well, it's really 1 from 2, as we know. He had that slight off that turned out to be a big off at Nogaro, but job done. Beautifully delivered here at Brands Hatch.
Yep. And the trophies are about to be handed out. Third place men, Valdena Brito and Attila Abreu. The first podium for those two in Blancpain. It was here a year ago that Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez picked up their first podiums in Blancpain. Christopher Mies and Enzo Eid collecting their trophies. A second place performance, but I think Enzo's mind is already on that front row start for the main race later on. And now the winning trophies for Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freins. Victory in the qualifying race. A couple of points for them, but more importantly, pole position for the main race later on and a chance to get their championship not even back on track, just on track after not picking up any points at all in the opening race of the season. Pierre Dudonné receiving the trophy there for the winning team WRT. A 1-2 from them, and again an incredibly impressive performance from WRT. They really know what they're doing, and third place for the Brazilian BMW guys. But I think Freins and Vanthoor look good for race 2, but from second downwards, Bruce, I think it's anybody's. It's anybody's guess, and any race at Brands Hatch, it's anybody's guess, with Paddock Hill as the first corner on the circuit, followed by obviously the dip and then the run up to Druids. But that winning margin, 26 seconds. I mean, if they'd come here and taken victory, wouldn't be entirely unexpected. Very strong lineup, but by 26 seconds that set the cat among the pigeons. But no points at all from Nogaro, but that's a potential haul of 33 points out of the window, so they're going to have to start scoring maximum at all the rounds through the rest of the season. Yes, absolutely. Their main, and of course some of their main contenders eliminated in the shape of Maximilian Buch and Vincent Abril not taking part after a crash yesterday for them. Then you have the likes of Riquelme and Ortelli, who are effectively leading the championship because of Dirk Muller and Maxime Martin just doing a one-off appearance in Nogaro. So the three-car of Riquelme and Ortelli, essentially the championship leaders, but they could only manage 11th place, so they're going to be starting a long way down in the field as well. So they're in the box seats to take the challenge to the rest of the field. Absolutely, and again, we talked about a few drivers picking their way up from problems in the field, but it is so hard to pass here. You have to be ultra committed to make an overtaking manoeuvre, stick at least to fabulous racing, but very, very tight. But that advantage that Freins and Vanthoor gained in the first race is, it's not just the fact they've got 8 points for victory and the next lineup have got 6, it's the fact that they delivered such a hammer blow to everyone else. Yeah. Absolutely. We're about to have our Silver Cup winners take to the podium in a couple of moments' time, but here's a look at the classification after that first race of the weekends here at Brands Hatch. Maxime Martin and Dirk Muller, after their one-off appearance at Nogaro, at the top of the standings. Ortelli and Riquelme on 27 points in second place, and Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor now poking their way into the top 9. And there are the Silver Cup winners, Olivier Lombard and Jules Simkowiak. Despite getting assaulted a couple of times during the race, they managed to get through to take the victory. And there is the Pro-Am winner, Bernd Schneider, on the left-hand side, Alexei Karachev on the right-hand side, and there's the winning representative from the HTP Bentley squad heading out there as well. And they're not quite sure what happened to Karachev, because he just came to a standstill on the last lap. Yeah, and in fact at his pit stop he couldn't get it going, and Bernd Schneider went running around and was sort of looking through the window to see what was happening, and then it ground away. So the German national anthem for HTP. So the German national anthem for the winning team, HTP, running the Bentleys, but only one Bentley out this weekend. And it took victory at least, I suppose, but a real shame for Max Buch and Vincent Abril. Vincent Abril, who of course was in Silver Cup last year with the WRT Audi squad, so that shows the sort of step up that you can make. And they are on the top step as far as the Silver Cup are concerned. Pro-Am victory going the way then of Bernd Schneider and Alexei Karachev. But it was Joe Osborne really who was leading the way in that, but Lee Mole having a bit of contact up at Druids, and I wonder if that maybe sort of knocked him out of his rhythm or damaged the car potentially, because it was a fairly hefty hit with the 71 Merc.
It's a big thing to hit as well. Big lump of Mercedes, but anyhow, if you put Bernd Schneider in a car, you do expect a trophy, and that's what's happened yet again. His first time on the Grand Prix circuit here at Brands Hatch.
Astonishing, isn't it?
Unbelievable, but there it is.
And so, victory in the Silver Cup for the HTP squad, and the GT Russia team finishing at top in Pro-Am, despite not actually managing to get round to take the checkered flag, but it was only sort of a quarter of a lap, so we'll let them off with that. No champagne tends to be sprayed, because they've got a race to come up later on as well, so they don't want to be stinking when for the rest of the day. But I'm sure after the main race later on this afternoon, it'll be a bit more entertaining up there on the podium after victory. The car manager, the team manager of HTP, has been asked to report to the race director immediately. That is the boss of the HTP squad that were just on the top step of the Silver Cup podium. So who knows what's happening there, as you see a gaggle of Mazda MX-5s lining up. So let's have a look at the points that we didn't quite manage to finish a few moments ago. Max Martin and Dirk Muller on top, Ortelli and Raquelme in second place, Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor down there in sixth position. They pick up 9 points, 1 point for pole position, 8 points for the race win today, so they're not quite in contention yet, but it's still very early stages in the season. Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies, they're in third position after they collected some points in that race today. Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler, they're still leading the overall Blancpain GT Series, including the Endurance, and they're fourth in this at the moment, and they'll be starting 10th on the grid a little bit later on.
And I think the fact there, we're looking at Vincent Abril and Maxi Boot, no points at all. They didn't get to start this race. At the top of the charts, Maxime Martin and Dirk Muller, maximum points, or as near as, from Nogaro, didn't take part here today.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the teams are concerned, it's been, well, we'll bring you the team points when we can get them later on to you, but a great first race here at Brands Hatch. Really entertaining stuff. Overtaking, not the easiest around the Grand Prix circuit, but it's just superb to have the cars out on the Grand Prix circuit. Last year was the first time that international GT racing had returned to Brands Hatch for quite a while. I think it was some 20 years or something since we last had major international top-level GT racing at Brands. It was an entertaining race. Let's have a little look back at some of the highlights. So the qualifying race got underway, and it was Laurens Vanthoor on pole position. Nicky Katzberg stuck with him around the outside of the first two corners, but if you're on the inside line for Paddock and Druids, you've pretty much got the job done. It was a great start from the Nissan of Craig Dolby, but more so from Joe Osborne. He managed to leapfrog both of the Brazilian BMWs in front of him. That was the rear view from the Rinaldi Ferrari that would later end up heading off into the gravel, but from the moment Vanthoor managed to hold the lead, he immediately was starting to disappear, Bruce.
Yeah, Nicky Katzberg managed to give chase, very bold as he was around the opening few corners, but it was the action all the way down the field, and I think we have a hit that might be coming up on the rear-facing camera on the Ferrari. Oh, and there it is! So that is taking you right into the heart of the action on a brilliant circuit, but the action was so close, except if you were Laurens Vanthoor, it was all getting smaller in his rearview mirror.
Yep, as were those pebbles as they disappeared out of the rear view of Norbert Siedler, who then had to pit. There was an attack from the 83 HTP car, Jules Simkowiak starting that. Then Stefan Ortelli made a nice move on Marco Bononomi coming down into Graham Hill Bend. The two Audis going side by side, WRT versus ISR, and it was WRT who came out on top. Pit stop windows came around, in came BMW Team Brazil, and they did a great job to get themselves out in front of the 73 Nissan. There was the second place car leaving the pits, but they would then later be given a drive-through penalty. That was Lee Mole attacking Alexei Vasiliev, and Vasiliev was then out of the race, and Mole lost a lot of time, and he was then passed later on by Stefan Raquelme down the back straight and into Hawthorne's. Nicky Meyer-Meldoff made a bit of a mistake, and that allowed Kevin Estre through, and from then on, Kevin Estre was on a mission.
He was the hare. He wasn't chasing tortoises, but he was getting closer and closer. And that battle for second place had 6 cars in it,
yeah.
And he was right on the tail. You felt 2 or 3 more laps, he'd have picked off 1 or 2.
This was a little bit rude from Stefan Riquelme, knocking Olivier Lombard into a spin. The 83 HTP car still managed to go on to win the Silver Cup, despite losing a couple of seconds there. Sean Walkinshaw was attacking towards the end of the race, but outside line at the right-hander of Hawthorns is always tricky to do, but no one could stop Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freitz taking victory in the qualifying race here in Brands Hatch. We'll be back on air live from 3 p.m. for the main race, which gets underway at 3:20.